I will pause the recording at the end of the session so that if you would like to ask questions that aren't on the recorded version, there will be an opportunity to do that at the end of the webinar as well. So welcome to today's webinar on how to be a successful Pobble School. Now, before we jump into that, as mentioned in the discussion on the chat prior to the call starting, there are lots of challenges with writing. And going back to my own primary school, I was a teacher for 16 years, a deputy head here in Harrogate, North Yorkshire. And at the time of starting Pobble, I had 39 Year 5 children in my class. For those of you joining outside of the UK, they were children aged 9 and 10. Writing was a huge challenge for the majority of those children. We had lots of children with English as additional language. We had lots of children with special educational needs. We had a number of children with quite significant behavioural issues. And again, thinking back to that time in school, the children were just demotivated by writing. If I was to almost write down the moments when the pencils went flying or the chairs went in the air or the children ran out of the room or the heads went onto the desks, in 9 times out of 10, it was a lesson that involved them putting pencil to paper. So as a teacher, I was always trying to crack how do I just get them more excited? How do I get them more motivated? What can I do to help them on that journey? And I've definitely been guilty of as a teacher of giving them something to write about and then just letting them go. And the more and more years that I taught, I was very fortunate that I taught children as young as 5 all the way through to children aged 11. And then through all those different experiences, I just picked up lots of tips. I'm actually a mathematician at heart. I personally found writing myself quite a challenge. So what we started to think about with Pobble is, well, you know, what are the things that we did? You know, thinking about my journey pre-Pobble, it was, you know, writing about something exciting seems obvious, but actually engaging them from that very first moment, whether it be a book, whether it be an image, whether it be a video clip, whether it be some drama, that was so important. At the very end of the journey, you know, how often do we just do writing because it's going in a book? Actually, I found that blogging with the children, or we had a writer of the week in an assembly, or we had brilliant displays that said, I'm the star writer. I even had an A3 sheet of paper in my classroom where if a child wrote something brilliant, we called it a super sentence. They would write it on a post-it note and it would go on the super sentence board. It was about giving them a purpose for writing. They wanted to be on the super sentence board, as simple as it was. So I always had this real belief that audience and purpose was really, really key. And one of the elements of Pobble I'll talk to you about in a little while is publishing, turning children into published authors. Now, between that middle point and the end point, there were lots of things that we would do along the way. So writing checklists was something I spent a lot of time thinking about. You know, what did the children need to include? Should that be the same for every child? Should it be differentiated? How long should they be? Actually, modeling good writing. As a teacher, I personally at times found that really difficult, but sometimes I would photocopy examples of children's work to show them. Again, how useful as a teacher would it be if we had access to thousands of those examples? That was something we started to think about with Pobble. And then there was that third element of, well, I've finished now, what do I do? And somebody said earlier, self-editing. How often do children just say, I'm finished? And you ask them to go back and improve, and they come back, and again, it's no different from that first version. So again, lots of my thinking in terms of teaching was, well, how can I improve their editing skills? How can I improve their feedback that they give to each other? And the Pupil Tools element part of Pobble is really built on the formative assessment side. How do we give children better quality feedback about what they're doing in order to improve that end piece? So all of the bits of the jigsaw, in a way, have been really key in trying to put together the Pobble tools that I'm about to demonstrate to you in this session. Now, the way that we broke those parts down is we've got resources, we have Pupil Tools, we have publishing, which is that end point of the journey. And the one bit that isn't included on that previous graphic, which many of you have identified in the challenges, is how do we know that's working? It's great they wrote about something exciting. It's brilliant they gave each other feedback. I love the fact we turned them into published authors. but has that impacted on their attainment? So the final element of Pobble that I'll talk to you briefly about today is we also now have an online moderation tool which supports you with coming up with accurate writing assessment judgments. And I'll explain that briefly in the demo that we're about to go into. Now, because today's session is about how to be a brilliant Pobble school, one of the things that I'm going to share with you afterwards is some ideas around routine. So I'm going to show you the tool, but number two, I'm going to provide you with some top tips on what do I see really effective Pobble schools doing? Because you'll see in a moment, if you've not been into the Pobble platform before, and I know lots of you are already members of the Pobble community, which is amazing, that there's an awful lot of ways that you can use the platform. So on the slides that you can see in front of you, which I will share, I've tried to provide some recommendations. This doesn't mean it's the only way that you can use Pobble, but in my opinion, having used it many times, there are things that just really work. And one of the first ways that we see Pobble being used is to try and improve children's stamina for writing. And I mentioned that right at the very beginning because one, a lot of you have mentioned it as a challenge, but also on the back of lockdowns, COVID, we know that actually children have come back into school. It's been fed back regularly by teachers, not just today's group, that actually my children are just writing less. All I want to use Pobble for, Simon, is to get my children writing a little bit more. There's some great schemes out there where children are doing drama each day, they're reading each day, but actually for writing, my firm belief is we need to give them, the children, the opportunity to do that as often as possible. Even if that's just, we're doing a 10-minute warm-up activity every morning when we come into school. Now, we've, of course, got resources to help you with that. So again, I'm going to jump in and show you, but so that you've got them referenced on the screen. Pobble 365 is absolutely perfect for this. The reason that I made Pobble 365 is that every day in my classroom, I used to put an image on the board that the children discussed. And then we would write a sentence about that picture. And it used to take me hours to find images that would engage that particular group of children. So I had this idea of, well, imagine that every teacher just had access to an image every day, and there was already some activities to help. And that's exactly what Pobble 365 is. Adding to that, we've also added an area of the platform called our Quick Writes. Now, these are premium writing resources. I'm going to showcase them to you in a moment. But again, of course, on the back of today, we hope you will go and explore some of them as well. And I'll come back to this presentation in a moment as we work our way through the session. So I'm diving into the platform itself. And the first place I'm going to land is the Pobble resources area. Now, if you've never logged into Pobble before, and I'm mindful that lots of you have, when you log into Pobble for the first time, this is the place that you will land. Now, lots of you will all automatically be drawn to Pobble 365 because that's an area of the platform. Maybe you've accessed it in a previous place before. It's the only place that you can access Pobble 365 now. It is something that we know teachers are using every single day. But there's an awful lot more that you can do in this area. And I'm going to take 5 minutes or so to give you a little bit of a quick tour around and show you what is available within this part of the platform. Now, the first thing I always recommend to everybody is that we do have a range of resources. We're mainly primary focused, but you may find it useful to add in an age filter before you begin to look at the resources that are there. So just for the benefit of the demo today, I've included a search for age 9 to 10. You can then begin to search by things like genres and topics and keywords. My personal preference when I first land in the platform is to actually work my way through some of the resources in the white bar area. Now, Pobble 365, if you're not familiar, and I know most of you are, there's an image every day, and I can scroll. I can also look at the thumbnail images by scrolling further down the screen. And if I click onto preview, you will see that as well as the image, there are also a number of activities that run alongside that particular picture. And I know lots of you are using those images already. What's brilliant as a subscriber to Pobble is these lessons are also editable now as well. And I'm going to show you in a moment what you can do and how you can edit this particular resource. For the moment, I'm just going to click Save for Later. Remembering anything that you find that you want to use, it's dead easy with the click of a button to press Save. Now, if I quickly leap to the Lessons tab, this has probably got the most content in. And at the moment, people aren't really getting into this content in the way that we'd imagine. So again, if you're already a subscriber to Pobble and your intention is to go away and maybe look at it again with your staff, really do encourage them to delve into this tab a little bit deeper. Now, to show you very quickly what's there, we have on the very top line what we call our themes and topics. These are much, much longer presentations than Pobble 365. So if I click onto the water lesson, and you'll see on the left-hand side, there are a lot more activities. I tend to find that these are great almost for using over a course of a whole week or a project. They're great for supporting your curriculum plans. They're great for cross-curricular writing. And again, we have vocabulary challenges. We have examples of children's work that are added into those presentations. There are often spelling challenges in there. There's often a longer writing task. There's sentence challenges. Basically, there's an awful lot of activities in there that will support you with the teaching of that topic, but with a real writing twist. Okay, so again, for children aged 5 up to 11, there's 30 different topics, and they're each differentiated 6 times. So again, if you've never been into the themes and topics area before, I highly recommend checking them out. And again, if you do want to save it to use at a later date, I've already shared with you how you could do that in that bottom right-hand corner. Now, scrolling down a little bit further, you will see our Pobble 365 Plus and our Quick Writes. Now, stamina for writing, as mentioned, is something that we can address quite quickly by building in those daily writing tasks. So as well as Pobble 365, we highly recommend the Quick Writes and the Pobble 365 Plus lessons for this. Now, Pobble 365 Plus is how you probably imagine. If I click into Preview, as well as the original Pobble 365 activities, again, we've tried to add in things that we know are helpful for the children, but also are things that teachers like yourselves are regularly asking us for. So vocabulary comes up all the time. So we've added into the Pobble 365 Plus lessons a vocabulary challenge. We know that when children are writing, that often for those weaker writers, a word bank is really helpful. So if at the moment you're using our story starters, imagine also having access to a word bank alongside that. Similarly, when it comes to some of the questions, actually having extra images might prove really helpful as well. And even in this particular lesson, going one step further, as well as an image, Anna's also added in a video clip to support it as well. So again, if you've not checked out Pobble 365 Plus, do check it out. To help you, everyone, ahead of today's session, I also shared this lesson with you as well. So when you go into your saved resources, the next time you log into Pobble, I've already sent you a copy of this particular lesson for you to explore. And again, I'm going to save it because I'm going to show you what else you can do with that lesson in a moment. Now, scrolling down a little bit further and moving into the second area of Pobble, one of the things that are regularly asked about is, well, that's great for developing writing stamina, Simon, but what else can we do to develop our weekly writing routine? And again, one of the things I talk to teachers about is Free Write Friday. It's a Cressida Cowell initiative. Those of you who wear a Cressida Cowell, I'm sure that's all of you. She talks a lot about just giving the children an opportunity on a Friday to do a free write, maybe something that's not even marked. It's just a chance for children to be creative. The Pobble 365 pictures and the Quick Write are perfect for that as well. Let the children choose their own. One of the lovely things about our Pupil Tools is the children can access all of these lessons themselves. In addition to that, we're regularly asked, how can Pobble support homework? How can Pobble support me with that parent that always wants something extra for their child to do at home? Or how can Pobble help with that child that I would like to do some extra writing at home with? And this is where our Pobble News starts to come into its own. So again, if I scroll down a little bit further, still in the lessons area, you'll see Pobble News. Now, Pobble News is a non-fiction lesson. It's the same concept as Pobble 365, but with a non-fiction twist. We take an image, we take a story from the news that week. And again, news has never been more important. Lots of it is terrible news, of course, and lots of it is news we definitely wouldn't want to discuss with our children. But actually, there are some really fascinating news stories as well, which we know the children are interested in. So again, to help you, we've built some lessons, always with a set of writing activities. The Pobble News tends to focus, of course, more on facts. We provide some nice text, and there's always 2 or 3 writing opportunities for the children. And again, personally, these are things that I would be looking to use as an extra homework activity. If again, you're trying to develop the writing stamina, you just want your children to enjoy writing that little bit more. And then finally, again, this might fit in with a daily task or a weekly task. Lots of you will have your sort of sentence punctuation, grammar activities. There will be little gaps that you're looking to plug. Our lesson starters are perfect for that. We take a key objective, we turn it into a lesson, again, usually supported with an image, and you can see very quickly, they're not so excitingly titled, these ones, but if you're looking for something on adverbials, modal verbs, and you want to do it through the forum of Pobble, there are lots and lots of resources in that bottom area of the lessons area to help you. So again, top tip, just spend a little bit of time, if you haven't already, having a good look at this lessons area. Now, what I'd like to leap on and show you next is what can you then do with these lessons? So again, you've come today to think about how can we more effectively use Pobble in our school. Now, most of you are probably already using Pobble 365 as it is. The really effective Pobble schools are taking our lessons and Pobble 365 and they're adding their own little tweaks to them. And that's what I'd like to show you next. So I've moved from search to saved, and I'm going to open up the Pobble 365 lesson afterwards. Now, as you can see, we're now in the lesson building part of Pobble. You may not know that all of the Pobble lessons are built in-house. They're not built in other tools. They're built using our own lesson building tool. Now, what's really lovely about that is, one, it's designed for primary school teachers, because it's amazing how much technology we're asked to use as teachers that isn't designed for a school. But really importantly, and for me, probably the most important part of our premium subscriptions, is that it allows you to edit and adapt any of our content for your class. And I say that as a group of teachers where we're able to access PDFs and videos, but we're not able to change them. How frustrating is that? So again, what I'd like to share with you very quickly is how I used to get my staff to start to tweak some of the lessons that they were using within the Pobble platform. So again, those of you that have used Pobble 365 will know that with every picture, there's always a story starter and there's always a set of questions. But if you're joining and you have particularly young children or really old children, you might find at times that that story starter or those questions aren't quite right for you. So what's lovely about Pobble is if you click on edit content, you can change any of the text. So if you wanted to remove some of those questions or add your own, you can do that really easily by just clicking on the edit content button. You can even delete a whole slide if it's just not relevant at all. So a good example of that is the themed-based lessons have a spelling activity in. If you already have a really efficient program for spelling in your school and you're not worried about teaching spelling through your writing lessons, then you just remove that activity entirely. Similarly, if you don't like the picture it activity in Pobble 365, you can just remove it. But that allows you to edit and adapt the lesson while still using the high quality images that we provide. The second tweak is to the actual settings of the lesson itself. Now, you may know that on some of our lessons, we display an age on the top right-hand corner. That can be frustrating, particularly if you want to adjust a lesson for a younger age group or you're working across 2 different age groups. If I click on settings, one, I can easily adjust the age and I can decide whether I want it on the front cover or not. Number 2, we know that in lots of classrooms that actually on a white background, right, it can be quite difficult for some children to read. So with the click of a button, you can change the color of the background. And we also know of lots of schools where they have a little bit of a rule around it needs to be a cursive font. So again, you can change all of those things with the click of a couple of buttons. And you can see that then it changes all the slides for you as well. So again, if you're ever using our lessons and think, I wish it was on a yellow background, I wish there was a cursive font, the settings button allows you to do all of that. And if you do find yourself wanting the font to be a bit bigger because there's less on the screen, you can do that within the settings tab as well. The third tab is adding to the content. Now, again, thinking about using Pobble effectively, we know, for example, that to add additional slides to a presentation makes that presentation sometimes even more effective. And you saw in my topic lessons earlier how we've already began, and the Pobble 365 Plus lessons, doing this for you. But again, if you take a Pobble 365 lesson and you think, I'd like to add my own word bank, Simon, we've again tried to make that really, really easy for you. You can see at the top of the screen, there are different templates. You can do everything from adding a video clip, adding an image, creating a missing word activity, adding an example of children's work. We have what we call a posh hyperlink slide where you can link to another website really easily. You can add a text slide, but the 2 I'd like to demonstrate to you are, 1, you can add a word bank. So imagine for a moment, I want to add a word bank to this particular presentation. Maybe I want to give my children some words instead of said. Maybe I want to give them some adverbs like so. So let me just pop some in. Shouted, screamed, cried. And in my adverbs, I'm going to put slowly. I've separated all those words with commas. What's really nice, if I now click on create slide, it turns that into my slide for me. If one of the children suddenly comes up with an even better word, again, with the children in front of me, I can quickly go back in and adapt and save. And again, it uploads or updates that slide for me. I can even jumble all the words up if I would prefer. So that's a really nice example of something we know really impacts children, giving them words, giving them a word bank, supporting those weaker writers, but actually being able to easily add a slide like that into your presentation. We know on other tools can take hours. We end up often putting them on a flip chart. We then move on to the next sheet. We write them on our whiteboard. The following day, we've rubbed them off. Actually, by doing it in the presentation itself, we know it's always going to be there for you to use. So top tip in terms of building on the lessons we already have is to have a little bit of an explore of that word bank. The other slide that's proving really popular, and again, you'll see this incorporated into lots of our longer lessons, is the ability to add a writing checklist. Thinking back to my graphic, it was one of the things that I used all the time with my children. We went through everything from your haps, your maps, your laps, like, you know, some children did this, your must, you should, you could, your red group, your blue group, your green group. But often it was, here are the things I would like you to include in your work. And what we found, having done lots of exploring around this, is that most teachers at some point in the year do rely on having some type of writing checklist when they're doing a longer piece of work. So again, with the Pobble team, we said, well, what can we do to help? So first of all, we said, well, imagine that all the teacher has to do is come up with those keywords. Perhaps I want them to include some paragraphs and some openers, like so. And if I click on save, it would turn that into my writing checklist slide for me. So straight away it was, can we help you to put something on the screen that you can also print out to make life a little bit easier. So that was stage number one. Well, then we said, well, imagine that we built some preloaded ideas for the teacher. So if I go to pick from suggestions, and for example, I'm writing a newspaper report, we generate some features that you might want to then select, like so. So perhaps you want the children to include some facts and opinions. If I go add and save, again, it would add them into my writing checklist for me. And we've even come up with the idea of including some prompts as well as part of those slides. So again, you can use it just to generate your own, or again, thinking about using this as a Pobble School, how can you ensure that consistently people are using the same type of language with their writing checklist? How can I ensure that my teacher that's new to year one is choosing criteria that's right for year one? And you could see that you could also filter by age as well as different genres. So that's a really popular slide type. And again, I see some of my more effective Pobble schools using this slide type quite regularly in their Pobble lessons. But again, on the back of today, have a look at some of the resources, have a look at some of the slide types, start to have a little bit of a tweak and explore, remembering that as well as editing what's there, if you go into the save resources and you go into that lessons area, we've already built in our premium lessons resources that include lots of those slide types for you as well. And that specifically point you in the right direction of the topic and theme lessons, the quick writes, and the Pobble 365 Plus. They're where I know lots of those example slides live. Now, the third part I'm going to move on to is sharing these lessons with each other. And again, just to reference back to this very quickly, all of those slide types, as well as being able to add them, we've also pulled out some of those key resources into other tabs as well. So if you just wanted writing examples, or you just wanted a writing checklist, or you just wanted a ready-made word bank, or you just needed a set of images, there are also individual tabs to support that as well. So the first couple of tabs are ready-built lessons. The other tabs are individual resources. So I'm going to go back into my save resources, and I'm going to open up this time the lesson that I shared with you earlier. Now, again, it's really important to the Pobble team that with Pobble, you could share the content in different ways. And clearly with the challenges of COVID, it's been really important to us that for our Pobble schools, we've built you different ways that the content can be shared. Now, the obvious way and the way that we hope you're able to move and work with Pobble moving forward is your children are with you. They're in the classroom. Wouldn't that be great if they were there every single day? Now, in order to present to them in the classroom, it really is as simple as present. It turns it into full screen with a click of a button. And in the bottom right-hand corner, you can work your way through the different slides that we've built for you. So that's the most obvious way that the lesson is currently being shared. However, alongside that, if you click on share and the drop-down menu, you will see that there are a number of other ways that the content can be shared as well. All of the Pobble lessons can now be printed. That can be the whole presentation or just selected slides. Again, great for things like catch-up, intervention. Again, if you're looking to run your own interventions using Pobble, imagine being able to print these images out for the children, the writing checklists, the story starters, being able to hand that over to a teaching assistant to run a lesson as well. Again, that's a real benefit of that print and PDF option. You can create a link to a Pobble lesson. So those of you that are joining that are using tools like Seesaw, Google Classroom, imagine being able to put a link to a Pobble lesson in one of those tools. You can do exactly that using the Get Public Link. We know that collaborating with each other, particularly job shares, larger teams, is also really important. So you can also, and this is the tool that I used earlier, share a lesson with a teacher. Now, it's as simple as Anna's on the call today. I pop in Anna's email or a copy and paste a list of emails. I send a message. I thought this might save you some time, or this is lesson 4 and 5 for next week. Imagine you've got a supply teacher in and you want to quickly send them a lesson for them to access. You can send them a quick message. You can send it to them, like so. And as you'll discover in a moment, when you next log into Pobble, if you go to Saved Resources Shared with Me, a copy of anything that you're sent will sit in that area. So I can quickly open up a lesson that Anna's shared. I can preview it. I can go, thanks very much, Anna, you've saved me hours there. And I simply click Create My Own Copy. And as mentioned earlier, just so you can see how that tool works, I sent that Pobble 365 Plus lesson to you before today's presentation. You've got access to that if you log into Pobble later. I'm also going to send you my slides from today, which will also arrive in exactly the same way. Now, the final way of searching is to share via our Pupil Tools. Now, I'm not going to demonstrate the Pupil Tools in great detail today. I'm going to share with you a very quick video or a link to a video in a moment. But to quickly explain how the Pupil Tools work, I'm just going to reopen that Catch Me If You Can lesson. Now, the idea is that within Pobble, you can add your pupils, and there's a number of reasons you might add your pupils. You might add your pupils because you're joining Pobble for moderation, which we'll come to in a moment. You might add your pupils because you want to celebrate their writing, which again, I'm going to showcase to you in a second. Or you might add your pupils because they have access to technology and you want them to be able to log into Pobble themselves. Now, the big advantage of them logging into Pobble themselves, and traditionally we see this used with children maybe 6 and above, is that one, you can send them lessons. So again, all you do is select the children you want to send a lesson to, as demonstrated on the screen now. That can be individuals or it can be a whole group, for example, a class, and I select share. That allows them to access the lesson themselves by logging in. It also allows them to access lessons that we put into Pobble. For example, they can access all of Pobble 365 through their pupil login, so you don't even need to send it to them. They can send work to you. You can even self and peer assess in that tool as well. Now, I'm mindful today we've got people joining from different age groups, different countries, different points of their journey. But if you are particularly interested in that piece of Pobble, at the very end, I'm going to direct you towards our training page. It will share with you a 5-minute tour of that particular area of the platform. And again, it's probably a decision around technology, age group of children that you work with, but it's a really, really powerful part of the platform. And again, I would encourage you to check it out. And if anybody wants to stay on at the end of the session for me to demo that live, I'm happy to do so. I'm mindful of getting a balance of not bombarding you with too much and making sure it is right for everybody in the call. So that is the lessons, the different ways that it can be edited, the different ways that it can be shared. And before I move on to the publishing side, I'm just going to quickly open up on the questions. I'm going to ask, and I try to do this just to break up the session a little bit. From what I've said so far, bearing in mind some of you are free users of Pobble, you're exploring Pobble, you're individual users, what's your one takeaway so far from that resources area? What is the one thing you've heard me say that you think, right, I'm definitely going to try that. I'm definitely going to explore this. I want to look at this in more detail. I'm just going to give you 1 minute, everybody, to post your comment into the chat, and then I'm going to move quickly on to the publishing side of Pobble. So one question or one, yeah. So somebody's saying they're going to edit. Somebody about this going to save them time. Great. Somebody's going to explore the themed lessons. Brilliant. Yeah, the editing is something that's a little bit hidden and is so powerful about the platform. The writing criteria slides, absolutely. I think that's a huge time saver. Certainly something in terms of the school. The accessibility, thanks, Matthew, that's good. Again, it's quite a hidden feature at the moment. The quick write, brilliant. The grammar starters, excellent. Just jotting some of these ideas down, thanks. 30 more seconds. The word bank slide, yeah, that's a personal favorite of mine. You probably could guess that. I know how often I made word banks and then just rip them up and put them in the bin at the end of the session, or put them on my learning wall. Imagine them always being there, or being able to print them out really easily for the children as well. Brilliant. Thank you. Some great ideas there. And again, all of that is very much part of the teaching and learning side of Pobble, the resources side of the platform, and breaking it down into 4 steps. I always say search, save, edit, and share. And if you remember those 4 things, I can search for different content, I can save it really easily, I can edit anything, and I can share it in different ways. Actually, those 4 steps will ensure you get the most out of that resources area. Now, I'm going to skip now to the 3rd stage of Pobble really, really quickly, and then I'm going to finish with 5 minutes on the Pobble moderation tool, which again, I know some of you are already subscribing to. Some of you maybe haven't explored that side of the platform before. Now, a nice step into the moderation side of Pobble is the publishing element of Pobble. I mentioned at the very beginning that one of the things that really got me excited in the classroom was when I started to realize that providing that end point on the journey for the children was so important. It seems so obvious that if they don't think it's going to go anywhere, they don't get quite as excited, they don't try their best. When actually, if you say it's going in a competition, or we're going to post that letter, or we're going to send it to the head teacher, actually then I want it to be my best, Mr. Blower. I want it to be the best piece of writing I've ever done. And the way that we put that into Pobble is we give schools the ability to turn children into published authors. It's a really simple process. You upload a picture of the child's work. Again, I'll share with you in a second where you do that. It's really quick. It's anonymous outside of your school. So again, things like GDPR are really important to us as well. We provide certificates, lanyards, so you can celebrate them in your school. One of the nicest ways to launch this is with a whole school writing day. And again, I've got a lovely article I'm going to share with you in a second. And again, you also get this lovely school page where you just get to celebrate children's writing every week. And going back to my presentation from earlier, one of the things I highly recommend as a Pobble school is that you look at a way of developing some type of celebration routine. Now, this might be something to introduce next term. I usually recommend 2 to 5 writers per week per class. It isn't something every week. It isn't you get published whatever. It has to be their best. This is about them improving. Somebody said about self-editing. The best way to get a child to self-edit is to make sure that there is an end goal. If you edit it and it's your best, there's a chance it's going to be this. And actually, that's a lovely way of using the platform. And there are loads and loads of materials to help you. Our reference running a whole school writing day to launch this. Anna, who's on the call as well, has written a lovely blog post with some ideas. We used to, pre-COVID, go into schools every day. I would run a writing workshop. We'd run it for the whole school. We'd get them writing all around the same theme and topic. And I've suggested some topics for you. I've built some lessons for you to deliver this. And actually, at the end of the day, as a staff, we'd come together. The following day, we'd have an assembly. We'd choose our first published authors. We'd put them in the front of assembly. We'd give them a certificate. And actually, a school I worked with took this one step further. And if you go into their entrance hall, they have this beautiful display called Writing Through the Years. And it's using, you can probably see me circling it there. It's one of our Pobble 365 pictures. The whole school has used the same image. And you can just see the progression of writing from EYFS all the way through to year 6 in one display. And it just looks amazing. And as I say, we've recommended some resources so that you can do this yourself within your own school. For those of you thinking about inspections and all those horrible things, this is a lovely way of also showing that to those external visitors that might come and visit from time to time. But more than anything, it just gives you a nice overview of what does writing look like in our school. So again, there's an article there with some top tips on introducing that. But I very much see that in time as being something that you can develop as part of a weekly routine. So that is the celebration side of things. Now, the final side of Pobble is I'm going to jump to the moderation piece. And I'm mindful I'm cramming quite a lot into this session, but I know looking at the guest list, that we have a number of schools joining today that have so far only subscribed to the moderation side of Pobble. Now, for your information, there are teaching and learning tools, and you can access them through a teaching and learning subscription. That's everything that we've been through so far. And there is also the moderation piece. And of course, you can access both of them if you buy a joint subscription. And I'll mention the subscriptions again at the end. Now, the moderation piece, just like the publishing, relies on uploading children's work. Now, again, it's a really straightforward process. I'm not going to demonstrate it in great detail today. All that you need to be mindful of is it relies on having pupils in Pobble. It relies on you taking a picture either with something like an iPad or a digital camera. And then there's a really simple upload process on the system, which basically asks you to give you some information and decide what you're going to do with that work. And again, it's as simple as a title, a description, and then you decide whether you want to use it for moderation or whether you also want to turn the child into a published author as well. And again, there's a video clip that I will share with you at the end that just takes you through this step in a little bit more detail. Again, I'm a little bit mindful of time, and I know that some of you were joining for other elements of Pobble, not just the publishing side. But again, all of the uploading is done through that markbook area. Now, what that means is if I go into the My Pupils part of Pobble, what we see, again, our best Pobble schools doing is building up evidence banks of writing for their children. So again, if I was to just click into Imogen for a moment, and I click into Imogen's evidence bank, what you'll see in Imogen's evidence bank is lots of examples of Imogen's writing. Now, these might be pieces that have been uploaded for publishing. And I talked a moment ago about how strongly I believe in that whole celebration piece. It's for some schools, it isn't for others. You might already have things in place in your school to support that celebration piece. But it also means for moderation, you have access then to this writing to share through our online moderation tool. Now, again, it's a really quick process. You select a collection of writing as demonstrated on the screen. And with a click of a button, you create an online moderation file. And again, without going through all the steps, I'm going to lead to a moderation file that's already been built and used by one of my schools. Okay, so I'm going to click on moderation. Okay, so I'm going to go now to my files. And I'm just going to open up an activity that I've just been running. Okay, so this is a training file that I've just been using. So the idea of the tool is that I've put together a collection of writing. I gave that work a title and a description. And then electronically, I can invite people to come and look at that collection. And again, what this allows, and again, those of you that have not used the tool before, you can use it in school to support moderation. You can use it for cross-school moderation. You can even use it to reach out to schools in other areas of the country, even international schools as well. But most importantly, it's a chance to collaborate with other teachers around the assessment of writing through moderation. Okay. Now, the way that the tool works is, again, as well as being able to read the writing, on the right-hand side, we have an online discussion window. And again, the idea being that people can leave thoughts, they can leave strengths, they can identify next steps. All of that is then captured as evidence and then is saved into a school moderation area. So again, it's a really useful tool. If you're joining today, and a number of you have said in the introduction, assessing writing is really difficult. Actually, moderating, we haven't got the chance to do it. We aren't able to go meet with schools down the road to validate whether our judgments are correct. This is a brilliant tool which allows you to do that, and you can do it all from the comfort of your own classroom. It saves lots of time because you don't have to travel. And actually, you've also got really strong evidence at the end of this by adding a conclusion around what judgments were made. Now, to support that even further, we give you a school area so that you can build up your own evidence bank of moderation files. And then taking it one step even further, we've also added some exemplification files for you as well. So if you want to look at other examples that have already been moderated, you can see all of those in that exemplification files tab. And again, if you want to check out this particular area of the platform in more detail, perhaps you haven't even heard of it before today, I would recommend our how to use page. If you're just really excited about moderation and you'd like to join a cross-school moderation session, we have a number of sessions coming up in March, which you would also be welcome to sign up and join. Now, they are run by an external moderator, so because of that, there is a slight cost to those sessions. But if you are interested in joining, do check out that availability through that Join a Moderation School. But again, if you haven't heard of moderation before today, and you are thinking, oh, writing assessment is a big challenge in my school, do take a little bit longer to look at that video. It's 5 minutes long. Do share it with colleagues in your school. And again, if you have any questions around that side of the platform, please don't hesitate to come back to me. In terms of those of you that are already subscribing to this area of Pobble, to help you, I've written a guide to moderation and using the tool. So again, if today you've joined because you just want to use the moderation subscription more effectively, I've written a one-page guide about how to make the most of this particular element of the platform. Everything from, Simon, how do I introduce it to my staff? How do I run my first session? How do I get my teachers uploading their own writing? It literally takes you through all of those steps. How do we even think about moderating with other schools? And actually, Simon, we're using it really effectively already. Where we'd like to go to next is creating our own exemplification. So if you are joining today and your goal is, I want to use the moderation piece more effectively, please do check out that one-page guide in that area of the platform as well. Which brings me to the training page. I mentioned a number of times today the training page, so obviously it'd be right of me to share that with you. And then, of course, I want to build in at least a good 5 minutes to answer any questions that you might have. So on the training page, everybody, one, there is a short video covering all of the different elements that we've looked at today. So if you're joining today, again, thinking about how do I introduce this to my team, the training videos will really help. And I mentioned the Pupil Tools, the video that you might want to explore is there. Publishing, it goes into a bit more detail, and the moderation, the same. Alongside all of those areas, as just demonstrated with moderation, I've also written a getting started guide for you as well. So again, if you want to go away from today with some really concrete next steps, perhaps you want to write some type of action plan. I'm not saying that you have to, of course. The getting started guide might do that job for you. Now, going back into my presentation for a final time, because I do link to that, just bear with me a moment. Just go back into my session notes. Bear with me a second, everyone. I think around a little bit too much. Okay, just bear with me a second, everyone. And then I will open up the floor, Anna, to any questions. I'm just going to log back into my presentation. Sorry, everyone, for that moment of silence. Okay, so I'm just going to go to my saved resources and I'm just going to search Pobble. And I'm just going to open up the presentation that I'm going to share with you today. So how to be a successful Pobble school. So we reached the weekly routine. The last thing that I mentioned is what might you do on a termly basis on Pobble? Now, again, I've given you a number of ideas already. The two that really jump out that might only be a termly activity would be something like a whole school writing day. That's obviously something you're not going to do every week. And there's that lovely blog post that you can reference. And obviously moderation isn't something that you're likely to be doing on a weekly basis as well. So again, I've suggested a few things that you might want to think about on a termly basis. We might run a moderation session in our own school. By term 3, we might be thinking about how we can do this as a cross school. In addition to that, on slide 14, I've just reminded you of a number of the other activities that might just support your planning of writing. So it might be that the curriculum maps are helpful. It might be, and I hardly mentioned them today, but we have 380,000 examples of children's writing. which might just be brilliant for those model pieces that you want to share with your class, those reteaching ideas. This is what a good piece of Year 5 writing looks like. Again, there are hundreds of thousands of examples in that resources area. There's also some beautiful printable resources, and there's a great blog written by Anna within that resources area as well. Now, the final few slides in this presentation all contain links. You can see here it says view the website. There's a couple of things I want to direct you towards. Number one, in March, we're running our 2022 Mighty Write competition. So again, if you really want to relaunch Pobble with a bang, or you want to launch it for the first time, the Mighty Write, do look out for it. Do visit the website. Anna will be sending details to our newsletter over the coming weeks. Yeah, we're looking to involve thousands of schools with that one. So I've included a link to that for you. I mentioned the training platform a number of times. Again, I've included a link within the presentation for you. And then the final page, which I will click onto, is if you're not yet a Pobble School, or maybe you're moderation but not teaching and learning, or you're teaching and learning and not moderation, or you're an individual account but you're looking at a school account, it's really important that you visit the subscriptions page and really understand what's there and available for you. There are school options, there are individual options, and as mentioned, there are different packages that are available. One of the things that we've put in place for you is we've also included a discount code. I think it's School20. So on the back of today, if you were interested in joining the Pobble community, you would simply click on the package that you would like. So for example, I would like a teaching and learning package for my school. Once you click into it, if you then click on apply coupon here, and it does factor in VAT as well, hence it changing from 500 to 600. If I include the code School20, as a thank you for signing up to today's webinar, we've included a discount code for you as well. So again, if you do have any questions on that, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or to Anna. But again, that coupon code is included in the presentation that I'm sending out to you as well. And then the final slide, because Anna's on the call with us as well, she does a great job of our social media. She does a brilliant job of our newsletter. Actually, we just changed that to fortnightly, so do check out for that. But again, we have a huge community of teachers and schools. And yeah, one of the really nice things about Pobble is, yeah, we do collaborate, we do work effectively, we do share great ideas through the blog, we do share great ideas through social media. So if you are on any of these channels, do give us a follow, do check out what we do, and of course, do sign up for that fortnightly newsletter that we do send out to you as well. So I think, Anna, that concludes my presentation. I'm going to pause for a moment, everybody. First of all, just like we did earlier, please take a moment this time. I want you to tell me before you leave, if you haven't got a question, one thing that you discovered today that you didn't know existed in Pobble. So if you've joined for the first time, that will be lots. If you're already an avid user, that might be something new. Maybe you didn't know about moderation. Maybe you didn't know about publishing. So one thing that you've discovered today that you weren't aware of, and of course, it will be really helpful before you leave the call. Yeah, if there was any feedback, if you enjoyed the session, yeah, please don't hesitate to leave a comment on that as well. And of course, I'm happy to stay online and answer any questions that have come through. Anna, have you got any questions that, yeah, that you wanted to share with me?
Yes, there are a few that have come in, Simon. I've just pinged you them over. There was a couple from Frank, I believe. Sorry, just scrolling back through.
Yes, a good question. So somebody's asked about sharing the lessons with supply teachers. So as long as that person has a Pobble account, and remember that people can have free Pobble accounts as well as paid Pobble accounts, if you share a lesson with them, if they're not part of your school community, they can still access and open that lesson. It would save it into their area of the platform, even if they're a free user. Obviously, if they then wanted to go on to edit and build their own or use their own premium resources, they would need their own account. But to send it to them and for them to access it, absolutely, it can be somebody outside of your school community. It doesn't just have to be a teacher within your own setting. So I think that answers that one for you. Anna, I don't know whether you want to yell them out just in case I can't read them all. Yeah, I think I've answered that one.
Yeah, so Frank was asking, sorry, bear with me.
School celebration page, I've just seen that.
Oh, yeah, so the question from John, can we share the writing celebration page with parents?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So if I go to panel school again, let me just open it up. Here we go. So what you'll see at the very top is each Pobble school has a unique URL, okay? So actually you could share that link with them. They would still need to log in and register to the platform. They can register as a parent to view that account. The other thing that you can do is there is a way that you can connect your parents to Pobble, and you can do that through the pupils area. You can give your parents a code. In fact, if I show you that very quickly, if I go into my pupils, so this is quite a nice feature. So if I go to my pupils, and if I click on print, where do I do this? Here, sorry for a second. Just click here. Action, sorry, I select the child, action, and I'm going to export the parent code. If you give the parent a code for their child, if they register, it asks for their pupil or their parent code. What that means is if you ever publish their child's work, we automatically send that parent an email saying, congratulations, Imogen's work was published on Pobble today, and it sends them a link directly to that child's piece of work. So yeah, Frank, feel free to reach out to me directly on that one, but you do that through exporting the parent codes and sharing those with the parents. And obviously there's a unique one for each child to ensure that the parent is only connected with their child, not somebody else's. And you do all of that through that My Pupils page.
Great. One more quick question, Simon. Thanks, Michael. Are the lessons linked to national curriculum objectives?
Sorry, Anna, just repeat that one again. Sorry, I lost you halfway through.
Sorry, Michael's asking if the lessons are linked to national curriculum objectives. Yeah,
really good question. So again, because we have people joining from international schools, different curriculums, etc., the Pobble 365 lessons, the quick writes, the Pobble 365 Plus, they tend to be more general. So obviously they're built around key themes and topics and different genres. However, the theme and topic lessons and the starters, they are curriculum aligned. Okay, so if you click onto the curriculum map, Michael, as demonstrated on the screen, you will see for the English curriculum, you will see a list of objectives across the top. Anna's sharing a useful link to that now in the chat. Just bear with me a moment. If, for example, I click into year one, I'll just make that a little bit larger on the screen. You can see all of my themes that are down the left-hand side, and the objectives that they cover are mapped out across the top. Now, it does mean it can therefore be adapted to other curriculums as well. We've got lots of Australian users joining today or watching via video. Alternatively, if you want to choose an objective, you can also go, well, which of these lessons will include a capital letter activity? Again, if I scroll down, I can see. Similarly for the lesson starters, they're exactly the same. And what's lovely, and probably my favorite part of the curriculum map, because they're never the most exciting, are they, curriculum maps, is all of these are hyperlinked. So if you look at this and go, oh, Adventures of the Deep Blue looks perfect, if you click on the link, it will preview the lesson for you in a new tab. Again, you'll see that on the screen. You can scroll through and go, oh, wow, this is going to save me hours of time. Just like with the lesson I demonstrated earlier, if you click on use, it copies it for you and dumps it into the My Lessons area. So you can use that curriculum map, save 5 or 6 presentations that are going to be helpful for the next few weeks, knowing that they're all nicely saved into that Save Resources area for you. So I hope, Michael, that answers that question for you as well. Frank, you've asked about the cross-school moderation. I wonder whether the opportunity to join some of those live sessions might be quite helpful for you. Again, we've got a year 1, 2, 3, 4, year 5, 6 session. They are 9 o'clock UK time. I'm not sure. I know you're joining from an international school. I'm not sure on time scales on that one for you. We will be recording them as well. But again, don't hesitate to reach out and ask me. Again, we're anticipating schools from all across the world joining those sessions. They're a great CPD opportunity, but there will also be opportunities for teachers to upload their own work and discuss it with other teachers as well. So again, I think the £40 a teacher for a 90-minute session. But again, if you wanted to book multiple places, there are things that we could do. I know you're already an avid subscriber to Pobble, so don't hesitate to reach out and yell on that one. Great, I think that answers everything. I can see a few people have included before they left their one thing that they've learned. I guess as I bring the session to a close, if you do need to leave, do feel free to jump off. Again, if you can leave your one new thing that you've discovered, or you can leave a comment about whether you've enjoyed the session or not. Any feedback is always helpful. We will be sending a recording out of the session. And again, we'll be sending out the presentation notes as well. Anna will remind you in a couple of days' time about that discount code, because that is only valid until next Friday. But again, if you do need any additional help, again, if you're already subscribing, we're always on hand to help you as well. And if you are new to Pobble, of course, we're looking forward to hopefully welcoming lots of you to the Pobble community shortly. I can see somebody's got their hand up, so I'm going to just stop recording, because I always feel that it's not quite right to record people asking questions out loud. So I will stop recording.